Hi, everybody. My name's Brandon. I am the founder of Science is Weird, and with Alessandro Gelmi, I am the creator of this specific instantiation of Learning in Depth. Let's talk about this. So, Learning in Depth is... No, let me even go farther back for this. When I was a kid, I fell into learning things in great depth just kind of automatically. And it was the thing that got me through school. It was the thing that helped me treat my own, at the time, undiagnosed ADHD. I would just lose myself in books, and I would develop... I think my parents and my teachers recognized that I had developed this sort of encyclopedic knowledge of the world where I understood a little bit of every kind of topic, right? One of those kids. But I think what they didn't understand was that I was also building like ridiculously deep bases of knowledge. Maybe a base is the wrong metaphor there, like anchors of knowledge where I'd go like really into the details, into the depths, not only of like the details, but of how we came up with those details in the first place, like the history of how we learned about a thing. I would go into, I don't know, like the Loch Ness Monster. And I would understand, like, what is the history of the reporting around the Loch Ness Monster. I would learn about, like, what are the actual pieces of evidence for the Loch Ness Monster, and what do experts think are the best explanations for, potential explanations for those. What is the history of claims about the interpretations of evidences for the Loch Ness Monster. This is a pretty good example of this. This was my sort of like geeky brain, geeky neurotype when I was a kid, and it got me so fascinated in the world that I understood something of how deep understanding could go. But then it wasn't really until college when I had actually years to just focus on like particular topics that I became even more aware of how deep knowledge could go. And that, like, once in college, I spent like 2.5 years on historical Jesus studies, which is one of those wonderful disciplines which brings together like history and world religions and philosophy and like Bayesian reasoning and imperial history and paleography, the study of ancient texts, and all sorts of things. And to get really in depth in one thing, I realized, is to get a little bit into all things and understand how everything in the world connects together. It was at this period of my life that I began to be really interested in different educational philosophies, and I would fall in love with one because, you know, like every educational philosophy, I think this is literally true, has some aspect of it that really is worth falling in love with. So I'd fall in love with it, and then time would go on, and then by and by, I would come to realize that actually, that one insight was like almost the only thing that educational philosophy had to offer. Like everything else was like, kind of okay. And I'd fall out of love with it, only to fall in love with some other piece of educational philosophy. And finally, I came around to Kieran Egan's educational philosophy. He called it imaginative education. I just tend to refer to it as Egan education. And I realized, like, oh my gosh, like he has all the Pokemon. He has all or almost all of the things that caused me to fall in love with things. His entire method of understanding the world is to understand what it is that actually makes people fall in love with stuff, and then to make it easier for them to fall in love with stuff. Kieran Egan, I'm saying all these things, and this is good. I'm glad I'm saying these things. But what I should also be doing is showing where you can find out more about this. So this is our Science is Weird web page, of course. If you go all the way to the bottom, you can see in the About Us page called Kieran Egan. If you click on that once, or on my iPad twice, and you can see a whole bunch of ways that you can learn more about this. Popularizing the philosophy, the understandings of Kieran Egan is like a good portion of why Science is Weird was set up in the first place. This is what we were trying to do with it. About a year ago, I wrote a book. No, That was a telling mistake for me to say there. I wrote a really long book review, like almost 100 pages long, for the annual Astral Codex 10 book review contest. If you go to my Substack, which is The Lost Tools of Learning, losttools.substack.com. It's linked at the bottom of Science is Weird. And go and click on the book review once or possibly thrice. You can find the book review. You can also find it in a PDF. And then a friend of mine was kind enough to, on the podcast, volunteer to do a special reading of it. So if that's the way that you get your things. It is maybe one of the better ways that you can find out about, understand the philosophy of Kieran Egan. Okay, why am I talking about all of this? Because Kieran Egan had this incredible idea that now, like in excess of 100,000 kids around the world have had some touch of, but that nobody has ever had like the full grasp of. And his idea is called Learning in Depth. He actually wrote a book about this, a simple innovation that can transform schooling. And my goodness, it's one of those subtitles that does not oversell what the premise of the book is. Egan's idea was that he had like these different kinds of understanding that he wanted to sort of shepherd people through. He had these tools, stories and puzzles and riddles and games and images and metaphors, and that he realized these are the things that do throughout history the heavy lifting of people's understanding, and that the human brain has co-evolved along with in order to fall in love with the things that we are trying to learn about. Egan's whole idea is that we split cognition from emotion at our peril, thinking from feeling at our detriment. And that what is needed to do is to reunite these things, and that they are naturally, historically, united already in these tools like stories and images and riddles and songs and games and things of that nature. He called it imaginative education. I've never liked that name because it makes it seem like it's frilly, like it's floofy, like, people have these like senses of the imagination of like, well, it's just, I imagine a thing, but it's not real. Egan didn't mean it that way. For Egan, the word imagination was sort of code for like the thickness and richness of ways that we understand reality the best, including things like concepts and theories and abstractions and generalizations and quantification and things of that. What am I talking about? He had all of this whole sort of paradigm. How to actually get it into classrooms, how to get it into homeschooling living rooms, how to get it into the world. He realized that maybe the easiest way would not be to first train a bunch of teachers to do a whole bunch of things, but rather just to introduce one sort of project. He called it the Learning in Depth project, where at the beginning of it, students were in first grade, and his way of doing it, were matched with a very random topic, sometimes one that there was a word that they'd never even heard about before, like mollusks or something. And then throughout, he thought, 12 years, they could be given little nudges to do the kind of learning that he knew created this rich, beautiful fountaining. It's not a verb. It's not a verb at all. Flowing, expanding, generative. That's sort of what I was trying to go for. Understanding of things. And this has been practiced in a lot of different places. His notion of it, though, was to not be too guidey, to not be too telly of like, here's a thing that you should do right now. Rather, give kids the space to do this over a really long time and give them little nudges, and then they will sort of like gravitate toward these ways. I think this is a brilliant idea that needs to be done. This is not quite what we are doing in this cohort. What we are doing is taking a year, and here I will now go back to the websites, going back up to the top. Going to click on Learning in Depth on the very top right there. What we are doing is doing a year long. I'm going to take myself out of this because I like these pictures. Taking this year-long look at all of these. Sorry, what am I saying? We're taking a year-long run through all of the different kinds of understanding, wherein at the very beginning of this, literally October 6th, the day before the beginning of this all, I think I can put myself over here now, we will pick a random topic for you, like exploration, it's one that somebody did last time, or the circus, or eggs, one that somebody did last time, or dinosaurs. Alessandra's wife actually did this one last time. You're going to get a perfectly dull topic, is what we are calling them. We are not letting people choose theirs. If you'd like to ask a question about that, first of all, you should, because my goodness. And the second is, so go ahead and ask that. And I will talk about that at the end. But we will choose one for you. There is a way that if you'd like to sort of guide it, we'll have an option. We do have an option where you can choose some parameters for it. But you will be getting the day before class, finding out what your topic is going to be for the rest of the year. And then every day you are going to get, well, here, let me actually not do these in order. You get to take this topic wherever you want. If you get, I don't know, the submarine world, but it turns out you really hate coral reefs. You find them dull and uninteresting, bland. Great, fine. You can do the abyssal plain. You could do the twilight zone. You can steer this into whatever direction you want to do while still touching onto your topic. By the end of the year, what we are going to have you produce, we call a hyper-interactive TED Talk, which is another way of saying a science is weird structured lesson. It is going to be your way of capturing the most interesting, personally meaningful information that you've learned and learning how to express it to anybody, not just clearly, but in a way that actually makes them fall in love with it. It makes them fall in love with it immediately. You do this by identifying something that's really amazing that like just changed the way that you see the world that's related to your topic. Finding a question, we call it a riddle, that leads to that. And then helping shepherd the person that you're talking to that by kind of scattering this with little clues, little hints, things like metaphors and stories and vivid mental images and things of that nature. That's what you're going to be able to do by the end. Now, I'm really excited about this because I founded Science is Weird in part because I really felt that Egan's method was in practice in classrooms throughout the world, but none of these were easily publicly accessible. I went to the only Egan, fully Egan elementary program in the country, in the world, I think, and it was amazing, but you actually had to go to outside of Portland to see this place. This was not easy to access. And I thought, I want this to be easy for everybody to access so everybody could see how amazing this is. In doing so, I quickly created this very stable form, this pattern that I guess I've just described, right? With the riddle and the revelation at the end and then the things in the middle. And my goodness, it works so powerfully. And you can use this sort of thing for speeches, for books, for articles, for almost anything. You adapt it in different ways. So that is the thing that you will be presenting, that you will be creating by the end of the year. Now, to help you get there, and also just because we would do it anyway, every 5 weeks, you are going to go on a quest. Like, for example, we're going to have you come up with the script for a movie trailer that has to do with your topic. This is, of course, the sort of thing that you could do, in like 5 minutes if you wanted to, but it probably wouldn't bring in the depths of understanding that you have about something. We're going to help you bring in the depths to it. We're going to use things like songs and movie trailer scripts and commercials and whatever to help you understand this better. Kind of to help you do that, but also kind of independently because they're awesome. we are going to, on Mondays and Wednesdays, shoot you pokes. I feel like that's mixing our metaphors. We are going to, in your inbox, on your email, you are going to get a little message that gives you a fun, goofy little challenge that helps you understand your topic differently. They're going to involve things like, oh gosh, there's just so many of them. You're going to shrink down and understand your topic. You're going to possibly expand up and do your topic. We didn't do that one last time, but I've been thinking about adding it for this time. You are going to travel back in time. You're going to be writing timelines. You're going to be doing all of these things that are going to help you understand your topic more in depth. All of these are built on Egan's understanding. All of these are our way of, Alessandro's and my way of integrating what we understand about Egan with this. I'm sorry, I think I'm saying the name Alessandro. Alessandro Gelmi. Oh my gosh. One of the smartest human beings I've ever met. Background in philosophy. He's working on his PhD dissertation right now. University of Bolzano in northern Italy, the PhD in philosophy of education. He is a rising star in the international Egan community. He's so smart. We worked together for a long time to come up with all of these pokes and these challenges and all of this to help make it delightful, not just possible, but delightful to learn about something in this much depth, and then and to do it in an Egan way that helps set you on fire for these things. That's kind of what the thing is. We do this on a Substack. You also will naturally get these as emails. Substack is a newsletter platform. We'll be posting. You will be then putting your responses in the comments and conversing and talking about these things and kind of geeking out with other people in the comments section of this. Oh, what else? Yeah. Okay. So there's actually a whole bunch of different directions that I can and will move for this. Does anyone have any questions right now? Ha! This is that moment where I realize I didn't actually put on it. Thank you, Maya, for raising your hand to say that. My apologies. It does explain a little bit, at least, of why that wasn't happening. Great. What times and days will the class meet? So the first way of thinking about this is that it's probably more helpful to not think of it as a class because it does not have any required live meetings as part of this. We refer to it sometimes as a course, and that's probably an okay word for this. A cohort is the word that we like to go for. But we have people from all over the world working on this. The two mentors that we have that I'll be talking about in a minute, Shelley is in South Africa and Andrew is in Hong Kong, right? So we have tons of different time zones going on. It's difficult to do live meetings from this. However, the pokes will come in every, I think we actually need to pick the time. Every Monday morning, but when is morning, and every Wednesday morning will be a new one of those. They will be due, the answers to those will be due on the day after, Tuesdays and Thursdays. They take about people differ in how much work they give to these things, and so some of this is up to your control. But people who really got into this last time described this as taking between 45 minutes and 60 minutes, so up to an hour per poke. So think 20 to 30 minutes a day for that. Although you can definitely do less if you want. You don't need to keep up with all of these things. If you fall behind, this is okay. You don't need to do all the first ones in order to do the later ones. There are some situations where it will help, but you might want to go back to the earlier ones and skip the later ones then. There is a specific sort of secret hidden progression of where these things start and where they are going. And it's pretty cool. Now, that said, we do have the schedule for this is that we have what I have described already is an average week. Oh, I'm sorry. And then on Fridays, we have a special email that will go out that will be that will be for questions. We'll be doing some like cool question asking as part of this. Not just boring question asking, but like, I mean, you know this, right? Like questions wielded wisely are some of the most effective weapons that exist. The perfect question can cut to the core of something. And so Fridays will always be dedicated to just the fine art of asking questions. That's an average week. Average week, average week, average week, average week, special week. Fifth week, so about once a month, is going to be the special weeks. On the special weeks, that's when you do your big quest. The first one is going to be, do you want me to tell you what it is? Yeah, I'm okay with doing this because I think we're probably going to announce it like the first day of class. Okay. Yes, I'll do it. You are going to be transformed into your topic. So if your topic is mollusks, right, like you're going to become, I know lots of types of, an oyster or something like that. You can choose. If that might be straightforward. If it's an egg, okay, that's interesting, right? Where do you go with eggs? If it's a bear, that's really easy. If it's a circus, okay, now that's getting super interesting. What would it be like to become a circus? What would it become like to become an airport? I think that's one of the other topics. You'll have to think about that and describe like what would you smell? What would you feel? What would you hear? That is what that's what you'll do for your first challenge. It'll be on the fifth week, and you'll get an entire week to just kind of unpack that and create something to answer that, which is so cool, right? The word imaginative only like sort of, I feel like, begins to describe what we are getting at with this sort of thing. I'm so excited. So excited about this. Yeah. Okay. So 5 weeks and then 5 more weeks and then 5 more. 5 weeks, 5 more weeks, 5 more weeks, 5 more weeks, 5 more weeks. This is 25 weeks so far. This gets us very nearly to the end of the year. I should say that there will be a week off for the holidays, week off for Christmas and a week off for New Year's. But then the final set of weeks, well, I need to still sit down and plan out the exact schedule of all of this, but you will get at least a couple of weeks to make your what we are calling your masterpiece, your chef d'oeuvre in French, your hyper interactive TED Talk. That'll give you a whole bunch of time right there. Great question. Was that helpful? Oh, we also are going to have on the special fifth weeks, we are going to have optional, what's the phrase for this? Showings, recitals, presentations. Presentations is probably the best way of saying this. I am not going to be, you will never see my face as part of this after this right now. This year I am doing science classes. Year 2 of Science is Weird, and I am writing a book, and to write the book I'm running a new online social community, and I'm going to continue my Substack, and I have some other writing projects that I'm committed to. And did I mention that I am running around like a decapitated chicken right now? It feels like it. And Alessandro is finishing up his dissertation this year. So what we have done is hire people who are better than us to actually do like the shepherding through with this. I should say that all of the pokes and the challenges that you'll get, they are by my hand, and I will be available to talk if anything is going really awry with your experience in the class. But we have taken 2 people who were in the last experimental test cohort that we did of this over the summer, which went very well, but it was way too squished together. We did it instead of over 1 year, over 30 weeks. Instead, we did it over 6 weeks. way too squished, but still, for all of that, seemed to work incredibly well. I was really excited at the sorts of things that people were making. Um, uh, uh, Shelley is in Johannesburg, South Africa. Andrew is in Hong Kong. They were both part of that. They did wonderful work, and also went out of their way to provide really wonderful mentorship, just on their own, for other people in the cohort who were struggling with things. So we decided to lean away from my and Alessandro's flaws at being able to keep up with all of this because of all the other projects that we have going, and to lean into their strengths to have them become the mentors. They will be the people who are sort of sitting over the live events. They're also going to have, if I'm remembering what we've finalized, and I might be misremembering this, something like every other week they will each be doing sort of a add-on optional live meeting for anybody around the world who's part of this to participate in. We'll be playing games and helping people figure out like what has been going badly, what's been stressful, and helping kind of look ahead to what is going on to, you know, make things easier, make things even more wonderful for this. They'll be meeting closely with Alessandro, who's so good at helping people do this. He is the person that I go to one, understand the philosophy of Kierkegaard, which is my own educational philosophy, which tells you something about how cool he is. But two, into actually like figuring out how to do this and how to make communities of people work wonderfully together. He will be guiding them, mentoring them so they can mentor other people in this. We had a choice when we thought about like, do we want to do this again? We knew that we did. We could go the direction where we could scale this very easily and provide a really fun experience into, into learning about something cool in the world. We decided to go the other direction. We decided to go the direction where we are giving you things that are challenging enough, just intellectually challenging enough for your topic, that there will be times that this is somewhat hard for you, that we are pushing you to your limit. Now, I should be careful of what I say about that because you are in control of what you are doing with this. So maybe I shouldn't say that we are pushing you to your limit. We are giving you challenges that are hard enough that if you want to push yourself to your limit, to extend where your limit is, like these will be challenges that you will be able to do that with. These are challenges that can transform the way that you learn things. We decided to go that direction. But to do that direction, we needed to do a fantabulous job, better than Alessandro and I could ever do, because we're busy with these other projects ourselves. That is why we have these wonderful mentors who are very excited about doing this. So they'll be having these sort of live events. They'll be having once every 5 weeks. The presentations, optional. Okay, so we should talk about some other element of this. I feel like I've done a pretty good job of explaining how the outcome of this is that you will have fallen in love with the topic. And actually, in fact, one of the things that I am proud to talk about with this is our money-back guarantee. If you've thrown yourself into this, which is defined as that, 3/4 of the pokes for a month. There are 2 pokes per week, so that would be 6 of them for a month. It can be any month. And it doesn't work for you, we'll give you your money back. Works for you means that you will understand the world. Your understanding of the world is going to be upended. And you are going to fall in love with your topic, which probably is something that you are not particularly interested in at the beginning. Hence the randomization of this. We are setting a high bar for ourselves. This is only one of the elements of what we were talking about, or what we think this can do. If this was it, we would do it over the course of like 2 months or something like that, and we wouldn't charge as much, and we wouldn't put as much into this. It would be a cool thing. But to be truly revolutionary, we have to go further than that. I guess part of the furtherness of this has already been mentioned, which is that one of the many directions that we'd like to go with learning in depth in the future is that we'd like to be, this is going to become how we train teachers to teach in a radically different way. Alessandro talked to me once about, he used to be a classroom teacher. And when he would get frustrated, sometimes angry, that he would have a difficulty of expressing how cool the topics were that he was explaining. The students kind of just sit there glassy-eyed. Not always, not even usually, but sometimes. You'd find that so frustrating. I had a very similar experience as an early teacher. And when he got into Egan, what he realized was the problem with it, and this was kind of embarrassing for him, he said, was him, because he wasn't going deep enough. His understanding of the topic was not deep enough to transfer to the students. His understanding of the topic was not personal enough, was not charged with personal meaning, was not emotional, and was not done with stories and with riddles and with images and with these abstract emotional binaries and all of these things to be able to be easily transferred to the students that he was teaching. The way that I do science is weird. Is I basically go through a mini learning in depth on these random topics that I teach, right? This year it's light and fire and eyes and volcanoes and apples and cats. There we go, in order. The reason that I'm a good teacher is because and a good communicator is because I know these tools. So that is another thing that you will get by doing this. Not just you'll learn about the circus a lot. That'd be cool. This ability to communicate in this way has been for me truly transformative as a human being, and I think it will be for you too. But wait, there really is more. Because this is our way of training you in research. How much training have you had in, this is the way that you research properly? I had so much of it throughout middle school and high school and college and less in graduate school. And it was all garbage. I think it was all garbage. I'm sure there's some pieces of this that were fine and that I probably still use. But I think it was, I think it all could have been thrown away and I would be just as fine of a human being. There were things like, here is how to use this exact journal reference system software, which, I'd never use again. Because it would be bespoke, customized to the institution I was at. Here is how to use the bibliography of a book. Here's how to use the card catalogs. Okay, that was probably helpful. Here's how to use it, whatever, right? What we have done with this course is we have wrapped it around different forms of information, different resources. So the very last week, before you actually get into your chef d'oeuvre, I don't really know how to pronounce French words, your masterpiece, is going to be, sorry, did I say week? I meant to say month. There were weeks last time, your month before that, is going to be how to tap into actual academic works, which really means journal articles and sending emails to researchers who are writing the coolest stuff and getting responses. We will teach you, as part of these pokes, how to send an email to a scholar that actually gets a response. Alessandra and I independently have sort of gotten good at this, and so we've combined our methods together to make something really cool. Not every time, but more than half the time, you can get a response from somebody if you know how to write that email right. Maybe more importantly, we will show you how to break into the world of academic articles. Not just how to break into them, although that's hard, just FYI. I'll show you how to do it, but then how to locate the articles that you are actually looking for. They're always so boring. They're almost always so boring, keeps out the riffraff. We will show you how to read an academic journal article quickly and get to the heart of it. We will show you how to make sense of the heart of it when the heart doesn't make sense. We will show you all sorts of things with this, but the most important thing that we will show you, that will help you do, is develop the kind of rich, nuanced, wonderful understanding where you're actually going to need journal articles in the first place to help you go further into them. Because what was so dumb about all the times that I was taught in college or graduate school, ever? Maybe not. In college to access these things, I never needed to. And they were boring and terrible and hard to access. So why would I care to? I get it that professors needed to, but for me, just wandering through the stacks of the academic library was more than enough. Well, we're going to get you to the point with all of this understanding of, marsupials or something where you actually all of the things that you're finding in books. You're done with most of the books. You need to go to actually answer the questions that you yearn to answer. You will need to go into academic articles for this. That is the kind of the coolest thing that we're doing with this. The month before academic articles, you'll be doing exactly the opposite. You will be doing, you will be doing, art, poetry can be load-bearing for understanding your topic. Because a poet sits down and tries to figure out, what does this mean? If I'm going to talk about alligators in a poem, why? What is the meaning of an alligator? What is the human meaning of an alligator? Songs, paintings, art, sculpture. A sculpture is not just, I'll make a sculpture of an alligator, right? It's I will make make a sculpture of how an alligator, maybe it's just a sculpture of an alligator. There are different forms of sculpture, different schools of sculpture making. Maybe it's hyper-realistic. That's always cool. But usually it's a representation of something in a human art form is done through human feelings, emotions, meaning. And we're going to show you how to find a painting or a sculpture that has something to do with your topic, and how to read it like you would read a book, how to enter into it, go through the frame, and fall in love with a painting. This comes from someone I'm proud to call a friend of mine, Luke Travers, who wrote the amazing book, Touching the Art, which I cannot recommend more highly. He has an entire method, and we'll show you how to do this method in this class. And you will use it to deepen your understanding of your topic and to fall more in love with your topic. Things like that. Okay, what else will we be doing? Before that, we'll be spending a month on how really I don't want to just say how to read a book, that it will be part of it. In fact, I forgot to actually advertise this. I should advertise this. Part of what you'll be getting is the recordings to a class, a summer camp that I did a year and a half ago called Reading Hacks. There we go. It was the curriculum, the improved, evolved curriculum of a company that I used to own called Reading Hacks, where I worked with college students to help them do speed reading, do slow reading, to unpack really difficult sentences. But then things like how can you find out of a library's worth of books on your topic? How can you find which books are actually good for you? How can you x-ray the books to see what they're arguing ahead of time? How can you kind of speed date the books? And then how can you really how can you become a power user of your local library such that you can use interlibrary loan to actually find the coolest books that have ever been written on all of this? Yeah. So that's cool. This is the sort of thing that I wish that I'd had in college. We'll have a month also that will be for things like Wikipedia and YouTube. We have some advice for YouTube. it's good advice and it's useful advice. It's not as good as as all of the other stuff that we have, but it's still good advice. For Wikipedia, boy, people think that they know how to use Wikipedia because it's so easy to use, but there are all sorts of ways that you want to be using Wikipedia when you're really trying to understand something, especially something controversial. We'll be showing you how to use Wikipedia in all sorts of ways. Wikipedia is the world's greatest repository for basic, I don't even want to say basic, for dry information. We're going to show you, you're going to learn how to take that dry information and turn it into wet, rich human understanding. It's incredible what you can do with Wikipedia if you know how to. But all of this, I'm sorry, I actually have some pictures for this, don't I? Skylar just knocked herself out with this. Here. I'll pop it over here. We'll talk to you about like the nonfiction part, talk about that. The Wiki Warrior, talk about that. Understanding through art. Academic journals, real researchers. All of this, though, is built on the backbone of LLMs. LLMs, large language models, it's the specific name for the kind of artificial intelligence, the kind of AI that ChatGPT is one of. Claude by Google. Claude is by Anthropic. Anthropic is owned by Google? I'm actually unclear as to the ownership of that at the moment. Claude is another one. Gemini is by, I know that Gemini is by Google, but is Claude also done through, related to Google? Google has many fingers and many pies, is the thing. They also have other AIs that they're working on, even other LLMs, right? I think that's true. Okay. Backstory here. Kieran Egan wrote the essay that became this book back in 2008. In 2008, if you remember, the internet had just really taken off at the time, if you were around back then. Obama had just about to be elected, and everyone was excited because, it seemed like the election was swung in his favor because of online organizing. And it was new and sexy and exciting. And people were realizing that this is really going to transform how learning works in the future. And now people recognize that, through this thing called Google, you could access more information. Maybe it was right, maybe it was wrong, but you could access more information than you ever could through your local library. And when Egan would go around talking about this learning in depth idea, people would say, but what about the internet? Doesn't the internet make this unnecessary? Can't you just learn so much information really quickly? And his answer was, yes, and you should. This is wonderful. We shouldn't see this as a threat to books. We should see books as fulfilling their wonderful niche and online easier resources as fulfilling their niche. And when you combine these things together, my goodness. Egan died 2 years ago, which is to say right before ChatGPT 3.5 was the first release of ChatGPT that was to the public. It was the one that really broke open LLMs, large language model AIs, to the public. And people are now saying why learn anything if you can just ask ChatGPT it? And when we thought about, how are we going to integrate, the elephant in the room seems to be for this, should we encourage the students to use ChatGPT? Should we discourage them? And we realized, oh my gosh, no. What we should do is we should build the entire flipping course on ChatGPT and Claude and any other LLM that you want to use. So this is the thing that we learn about first. And it continues on through the whole year. This is our way of making everything easier. You're never required to do anything of this, right? This is not the sort of course that we run. You can always say, no, thank you. But you also don't need to, it's okay if you don't want to use these and you can use them minimally. That's perfectly fine. But we want to help you use them maximally if you'd like. So when we do like the books part, we have you using an AI to help you figure out what are the books, the best books in your field for the topic of the questions that you specifically want to answer about your topic. More than that, we are going to show you how to use these AIs to understand things in the books that you have a hard time understanding. We're going to show you how to use them to summarize. Sorry, am I able to commit to this? I think we are going to show you how to use them to summarize the books for you. We're going to show you how to use how to use these AIs to put the author of one book into conversation with the author from another book. The AI, we feel, changes everything in learning. It doesn't need to. You can always say no to it, and that's fine. But for those of us who are saying yes, this is the Industrial Revolution. This is the agricultural revolution. This is like the beginning of the Stone Age, where we're like, oh my gosh, like this, with these pointy rocks, we can do all sorts of things that people have never been able to accomplish with just pointy sticks. My goodness. I have been following this conversation on like how to do all of these things pretty closely, and I use this all of the time for myself and my own research. And I will just say I have never had more fun researching things. I want this to be fun for you. I want this to be amazing for you. And so we're going to build all of this on the back of AI. And so one of the things that people get out of this, who've been doing this, do I have a quote from one of those people here? I don't, but a lot of people have said that like they didn't understand how to use AI, more than sort of naively. They're always kind of worried like, oh, but what if it tells me something that's wrong? Yes, it absolutely will hallucinate sometimes, but you can learn how to spot when it hallucinates. We'll be showing you that, among other things. We'll be showing you how to make it fit into your own mind, as opposed to you having to kind of stoop to fit inside of it, so you can understand intuitively the things that it is telling you. One of the things that you'll come away with from this is just like you will use these things more. I'll answer a question right now. Maya says, I have a really busy schedule and this seems like a lot. Do I need to do every poke and quest for your lid topic? No, you don't. It is perfectly okay if you sit some of these out. I should also say that we are interested in doing these again in the future. So probably one of the times that we'll be doing them is over next summer. Can't commit to anything at the moment, but that is sort of our assumption right now. So if you'd prefer to do this over the summer, it'll be denser because, of course, it won't be over 30 weeks. It'll be over like 12 weeks or something like that. Gosh, that is not very much time. So it'll be so dense. So just so you know, like maybe you'd prefer it like this then still. I will say that there were people who also like, instead of it being last time, like 45 minutes to 60 minutes per poke, they were spending like 15 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes per poke. So you still do less than that. Can I give an example of what a poke might look like? Yes, I can. Let me even just pull something up right now that I'm going to keep secret from you. Technically, this is viewable online, and I should have taken it down already. But let me give you a really explicit one for this. And I say, what the heck? Let's do this one. Can I hide this so that you can't? No, but I think that it is hold on. This is actually one that I'm one of the ones that's the least Egan-y of all of them. Let me get a slightly better one. Yeah, this one's weird. Let's do this. It starts off with you're hiking somewhere you've never been, and you stumble upon a small society that, in an incredible coincidence, has an entire religion devoted to your topic or to an instance or a piece of it. Finally, you think, people who get how important this is. You stay to observe. What do you see people doing in this religion? And then I kind of unpack, right, like where this idea even comes from. And I give some suggestions for how to think about, how to imagine a religion that would be devoted to your topic. Is this too out there to share as the first one for this? I did the human back of my topic, which is what is going on with these examples. You'll understand what binaries are or whatever for this. And note that all of these, well, not all of these, but many of these are actually, like, I give specific examples of how you could prompt an artificial intelligence to give you ideas for this. Now, the danger, I'll just say, in like having the artificial intelligence do the work for you, is that it will do the work for you, and the work is the part that actually creates changes in your neural structure. It's the part that makes you a different person. You want to be doing this work. However, getting a first draft of it or getting an AI to give you like some ideas, and you're like, oh, that's stupid. That one's really interesting. Okay, let's iterate on that. And then like you will find yourself, if like you were partnering with the AI properly, you will find yourself being extended into sort of cool ideas that you never would have known that you had the capacity even to come up with. It does kind of the nonsense really, really well. Then we talked about rituals for this. It's so cool. And then I came up with this idea, which I was really proud of, and I remember to this day, which is a good sign that I was doing enough of the work for this. That is one example of this. Does that suffice for this? I feel like I should do that more frequently. Because, of course, in my mind, I know how fun and cool and weird these things are. That was actually a very involved one. And if that seemed like too hard, remember that it is built on the backs of the other ones that have come before it. So, like a lot of those things that we were talking about, like they were already previously introduced to these things. And this kind of combined a bunch of them together and threw them in this interesting imaginative framework for this. Most course content will be viewed by students asynchronously. Yes, absolutely correct. We can call this an asynchronous class, where asynchronous means like they're given the little assignments, so to speak, are given on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then, they are due on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So about a 48-hour kind of turnaround window for that. But again, if you fall off the wagon or you choose not to do some of these, this is okay. You will have access to these things after the course. So if you skip some, you can always see what they were earlier, especially since it will literally be in your email inbox. Just don't delete them. But also we can give you access to those. Really great question. We refer to a lot of how helpful this info training would be for college students or adults, but can I speak to how this might look for my middle schooler? I mean, I don't know. I sort of think of this the way that I do with Science is Weird stuff. Like my actual sort of imagined audience for Science is Weird lessons is myself. I'm in my 40s at this point, right? I only do things that actually extend my own understanding of the world. But then I make it so that, even like elementary and middle schoolers and high schoolers can understand this sort of thing. So the idea is for all of this, or virtually all of this, to be doable by somebody who is in middle school. We're saying that 11 years old is the beginning cutoff for this. When an 11-year-old does this, it will look different than when, someone with a PhD does this. Last cohort, the inaugural cohort, the practice cohort for this, we were doing, we had people with PhDs and we had students in this. And the responses usually looked somewhat different, as you would expect. But they're responding to the same things. We're inviting parents and kids into this. In part because we think it's so amazing when people do right the same thing sort of together. You have two different topics, or more if you have more kids or parents. But you're doing the same poke, so you can talk about and share what you're doing in common. You can talk about your struggles. You can talk about like this. Look at this cool thing that I did. Oh, I had this idea. I can riff off on that. If you learn these skills as a middle schooler of research, for example, of how to use Wikipedia so wonderfully, of how to use YouTube even better, of how to fall in love with books, of how to fall in love with anything. And that changes the way that you deal with other topics throughout middle school and then throughout high school. Who do you even become as a college student or as an adult if you don't go to college? My goodness. I mean, I will tell you honestly, and this sounds dumb. This is me embarrassing myself. What excites me about doing this is that we are developing these tools into things that eventually we're going to be able to do some version of, a different version of, for kids as young as first grade. Not at this time. But we could have first graders and second graders and third graders doing things that right now, like very few people ever do in school. And not just with like, I'm doing higher level things. Look at me. I'm like reading journal articles. First graders don't need to be reading journal articles. But that the kind of understanding that is becoming normal for them is this super rich understanding that is personally meaningful to them. Part of the reason that we take a big deal on randomizing at least somewhat your topics is because if you picked a topic and then you were like, oh, yeah, this is really interesting, your view of the world, it would be difficult to change it. Just your view of the topic. It's only when you start with something that you're like, oh, gosh, mollusks. Or if you've been part of our snails class last year, maybe you're like, mollusks. Okay, so the circus. But if you're part of a circus troupe, I have a former student who's part of a circus troupe. True story. She's awesome. Then, I don't know, the seashore. Okay, whatever something boring is for you. It's only when you look at this and go like, I don't even know how to make this interesting. And then you come to realize that you don't need to make it interesting. It already is interesting. You just need to figure out how to connect with it. When I went to, in Oregon, this now defunct elementary school program that was totally given over to the ideas of Kieran Egan. My wife and I were considering moving there, packing up our family and moving down to Oregon. I got the chance to talk to some of their elementary school students who had gone through, I think at that point, 3 years of learning in depth. 3 or 4 years of learning in depth. And I asked them, like, these were randomly chosen topics. Do you ever get bored with them? And I remember one of the girls answering, oh yeah, but it's normal to. I go through my periods of getting bored, and that used to really worry me that maybe this would never be interesting to me again. But now I realize that that's just like part of life. And I remember thinking, who are you? Like, how are you so wise about the world? This is the sort of thing that like marriage counselors like want people to understand about romance. You are already you have like this like deep, mature, romantic understanding with learning. So that Cherish is like what I think is possible for middle schoolers for this, is that they will be transformed in how they understand learning and understanding and the world. What else is there to say? There are actually a few other things. One of them is we are not limiting this to people who are homeschoolers, though we are like angling this toward people who are homeschoolers. What we wrote here for who this is especially good for. I mean, obviously I have ADHD. You probably know that even if this is your first time meeting me. But, you know, for those of us who feel like I can go in any direction, this is really hard. It's supposed to be a proton accelerator. Maybe we need to redraw that one just so it's like blasting in every direction. They're going like, like a fire hose. Like you learn to wield your attention like Darth Maul. Perhaps we should put horns on that person. Wielded a double-bladed lightsaber, right? Perfectly, with precision. Not that this fixes ADHD or anything like that, but because we are giving you specific twice or thrice, I guess, with the questions, regular pokes to help you like find something goofy and fun and cool to like kind of catch your attention and help you focus on something. This is useful for those of us who have a hard time in not going in every direction at once, or just being so bored that we don't know what direction to go in. But at the same time, it's also good for people who really want to go in their own direction. Because, like if you want to do, I don't know, the seashore, you could do a specific seashore, you could do a certain kind of seashore, you could do like the animals that are found in the seashore or the plants that are found in the seashore. You could do like a historical approach to seashores as opposed to a scientific one. You could do a human approach, right? Human interactions with the seashore. You could focus on environmentalism. You could focus on the physics of seashores, right? You can focus on all sorts of things. A friend of mine is an occupational therapist who works with neurodiverse kids outside. And she was loving, she was part of the inaugural cohort over the summer. And I asked her, like, what kind of people do you think this is really good for? She said, for students who just like, when they find their one thing that they're so interested in, it makes people terrified. Because it's training in how to communicate in the original human language of riddles, jokes, stories, metaphors, images, right? The original tools, the lost tools of learning, as I put them. We haven't at all talked about the cohort element of it and the idea of like actually like ginning up community with this. Last time when we did it way too short to really have any. We actually did have some community sort of form from it, and that was beautiful. Part of the reason that we're slowing down, making this a year as opposed to just 6 weeks, is so that we have more room for community to form. This is kind of a thing that we're testing out, but we're hoping that we do a beautiful job with this. That's why we're excited about the mentors from. You can look at me and Alessandro, but also Shelley and Andrew from this. You could look at a little bit from Egan from this. The pricing for this is basically $800 per family for the first person, and then getting if there are two people who want to sign up and get their own logins so they can be part of the online community and can get feedback on their pokes and all of that, which is highly recommended, that's an extra $100. For the first 20 families who sign up, those who sign up through this way, they will get $300 off from it. We want to make this affordable for people. The other thing for this is you can. I need to put it down here. Is that you can pay by month. It is. Put this down over here too. What is it? It is $120 per month for the first person in the family. For the second person is $135 a month. This is U.S. The 3 people or more is $150 per month. If you want 10, if you have 10 members of your immediate family, defined in a reasonable fashion, we can totally do that for you. I don't know. My wife and I have 3 kids. We have friends who have 4 and more, right? Like big families can be hard, and we want to be making this easy. Some other questions for this. Feel free to throw it into the comments right now. We can make a specific discount for you if you absolutely need to for this. We'd prefer to have you part of this if you really want to be part of it than not. We don't do credit because This Is Science is weird. But if you're a homeschooler, you can do homeschooling credit for things. If you want to do this for science or social studies, so you may live in a state or country or province or territory or what have you that has certain laws or rules or regulations about what can count for a science class or a social studies class or whatever, a math class, whatever. and I can't be the expert in that. But if it works for you to make this into something like that, you totally can. First of all, you're going to be learning lots of different kinds of knowledge pretty naturally from doing this, unless you're trying to steer into like making it all about science or all about history and humanity or whatever. You're naturally going to be learning a lot. And even like the parts that you're learning, might be about as much as you'd be likely to learn and remember from an ordinary social studies or science course. So if you want to just say, okay, that's good enough for me, then that's fine for us. And you can count this as that. But then if you want to specifically do this as a history or science course or whatever, you can go to those topics. And you can say, I want this to count as social studies, so please pick randomly for me something from culture or technology. Okay, we can do that. We can make your random topic one of those. Or I want to do science, so please pick it from animals, plants, and nature. Sorry, we only let you do two. So animals and plants, or nature and plants, or whatever. Or if you just want to be weird, say technology and animals, please. Cool, great, fine. We will totally do that for you. Although I will point out that if you wanted to actually get really creative about it, and you wanted to do a history class, if you wanted to do, cats and history, you can do the history of cats. You'll also learn a lot of science in the meantime, but you can focus on the history of cats. If you want to do the history of grass, right? That Walt Whitman poem is just one place to start. There's so much you can do with that. Do you know that we live in the grass age? Just for example. Do you know that like 4 of the other things on this page alone are already just types of grass? Okay. And if you wanted to do science, but you wanted to do technology or counting systems, right? You want to do the technology of science of the circus. I mean, you could imagine somebody writing a book called The Science of Castles or the Circus, or the Science of Caves, or the Science of the Wheel aircraft, right? Like maybe obviously for that one, right? Like you could totally do that too. So feel free to get really thoughtful and interesting and weird about all of this. Is there any other costs for this? No, but you should strongly consider getting a $20 a month subscription. It's presently $20 a month as of yesterday, I think, to either ChatGPT Plus or to Claude Pro. Both of them have free versions of them. In my understanding of this, I think this has changed a little bit. For free, you can use the best version of Claude, but only have a limited number of uses per day. That might not be true. There might be a better version of Claude that you get access to at the paid version. I don't have a paid version to that, and I should. With ChatGPT, you can for free use their less good version, almost as much as you want. And you can use, I think, their nice version a little bit. But to get almost unlimited access to their best version, then you need to pay the $20 a month. You don't really get unlimited ever unless you, I don't know. I don't know if you can get unlimited exactly. There might be other ways of accessing it. Yeah, really recommended. But we will have you try out both of these at the beginning and to see which one you like more, which one is better for you. Yes. So, yes. You might not want to buy that even right now. You might want to wait for that. Okay, is there anything else that I have to offer to this? I haven't talked very much about how Some of the pokes that come later are really quantitative ones. Like if you know what Fermi estimates are, we're going to have you work on Fermi estimates for part of this, which is going to be really cool. Uh, yeah, okay, that's good. We're helping you use AIs to fight with each other or to create a fight between scholars to help you steelman the best of different sides of an actual academic controversy and get to the end of that. Uh, One person wrote for this who was in the last cohort, I think it's spectacular and I'm probably going to register for every cohort. Another person said, I like the freedom to kind of jump ship on the path I'm taking if necessary. I feel excited about learning. Yay. I love the class. And another person saying, it doesn't feel like school. It feels like playtime. Those are not even the best quotes. I need to do a better job of mining quotes from what people have said from this. Okay, in that case, we're done. First 20 get that discount, and it will start on October 7th, 2024. I hope to see you there. I think this could change your life. Thanks, everybody. Bye.